And at first, my body language, changed dramatically. Everyone could see that Josh was not happy. And I said, I need a minute. And so I walked away from the situation. And in my head, I've been through some really other large, challenging projects as well. In my head, I know how this plays out. We're going to end up tearing off this entire roof and having to replace it with only about 6 months left to go in this project. And there's going to be insurance involved and lawyers, and the client's going to be very angry. And, all of these things, in that moment, I'm calculating the pain we're going to have to go through to correct the mistakes that were made.
Hello and welcome to Growing Through It, your go-to podcast for real leadership stories. I'm your host, Jen Arnold. In every episode, you'll hear straight talk from leaders who face their own challenges. We'll dive into those whoops moments and the insights that followed. This podcast is about the lessons that refine us, shared to help you confidently lead in your own style. Whether you're looking to steer your team towards success or just seeking a spark of inspiration, you're in the right place. Let's grow through it together. Josh, welcome to the Growing Through It podcast. I'm so glad to have you on today.
Thanks for having me on, Jen.
Well, Josh, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell the listeners who you are.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Josh Durham. I'm the owner and principal at a company called Gamut Project Solutions, located in Portland, Oregon. We are, simply put, we're a construction management firm, but we do a lot more than that. We do a ton of leadership training and mentorship of small businesses. And then, yes, we help people build construction projects. And in my previous life, I was a operations and project manager for one of the biggest construction companies in the United States. I literally started out there basically as a kid and grew up in construction there for about 17 years. And a few years back, I wanted to break off and try to continue to make a positive impact in the construction and design community and the business community at large. And that's where founding Gamut Project Solutions came into play.
All right. So 17 years in the construction industry before you went on your own. So how many years would you say that you've been in some sort of leadership role?
I would say 18 of my 20 years total.
That's quite a lot, which gives you a lot of potential for screw ups.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. And I took advantage of all those opportunities to screw up.
Well, which screw up do you want to highlight for us today? Please take us through it.
Sure. I got a lot of stories. I've done about $1 billion worth of large scale construction in my career. So again, that gives me a lot of opportunities for challenging situations. And since this is a leadership discussion we're having here, I'll tell a gift of failure story, what I call those, around leadership and an opportunity for me to lead one way or another. This story comes from a leadership series that we call the Foundational 5 Guiding Principles. And through this entire series, there's a concept that we thread together called purpose-driven leadership that I really believe is core to being successful, no matter your business that you're in, and also in your personal life too. It's all connected. We can't segment those things as much as we want to. It's all interconnected. So the story here, it's a construction story. Most of my stories are, because that's my life and past. And in this one, this is a few years ago, and we're working on it's about $100 million project at the Portland airport. Really challenging, fast-paced, high-design project. And we're about a year and a half into this really challenging job. And airport projects have very hard deadlines because airlines have needs, and people need to fly. And so when there's a deadline to hit for opening up, a project like that at an airport, you shall hit it. And so we're progressing through this project. I'm going to keep it high level for your listeners.
I'll dig in, Josh. Don't worry.
Okay.
So
yeah, if I get too far down in the weeds, you just pull me up.
I'll
okay, Jen? All right. But in general terms, we're about a year and a half into this really challenging job. We've overcome a lot already. We only have about 7 months left in the project, and every day, minute, and second counts on this job to make sure that we hit this date that we need to. And it's around May of that year, and in Oregon, it was the driest spring we had in recorded history that year. And we had just finished up putting our about $1 million roof on this building, and it was a very complicated roof just because of the shape of the building. And I was amazed, though, because we had this really dry spring and we didn't have to battle rain in Portland, Oregon, which is usually what we're doing when we're trying to put roofs on out here. And so I was like, wow, that was too easy. The roof just went on. We didn't have any issues with rain or water or anything. And anyways, now it's May, and it's Memorial Day weekend, actually. And traditionally on those kind of long weekends, we shut the projects down early. And let everyone get on, with their holiday. And so it's about noon that day, and all of a sudden I get these weather alerts coming through on my phone. I'm sitting in all day meetings with the client, and I get these weather alerts, and it says there's flash flood warnings coming to the Portland airport. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's not good. And I kind of think well, is everything all right? I think everything's okay. I think we have all the, battens hatched and all that stuff. But I do remember on one side of the building, we had some design changes that had left just a small portion of the roof exposed. And so I got a hold of my counterpart, the field leader on the project, and I texted him and said, hey, I got these weather warnings. I know there's a little bit of the roofing exposed. Did we get that taken care of? He texted me back right away. He said, yep, we saw that this morning too. I talked to the folks in the field, and, they've told me that they've secured it. They got it all protected. And so we're good. So in my mind as a leader, I'm like, whew, sweet. I don't need to worry about that. I'm going to go enjoy my long weekend too. And so anyways, so the weather reports were correct. We had extreme wind and rain for about 3 hours that afternoon. So that all happened. But we come back, the next week, and, I'm just sitting there, trying to catch up on my hundreds of emails and, just happily going along. And then I get a call from someone that's out there on the site, and one of my team members, and they say, hey, Josh, we need to cut a hole in the roof. And I say, well, why would you do that? This is a brand new roof. Please don't. Please explain to me why we would be cutting holes in the roof. And he said, well, you remember that crazy weather that we had on Friday afternoon? I said, well, sure. Yeah. And he said, well, a bunch of water got underneath our roof membrane. And I said, well, how can that be? We had everything secured. And he said, well, the way that it ended up getting protected wasn't nearly enough, and there's water underneath our roof, and so we need to start investigating. And so I get a pit in my stomach so big, and I just I'm sick. And so I said, okay, well, before you do anything, we're coming out. So myself and the general superintendent, we get in the truck and we head out to the site. We get up on the roof, and we have a discussion as a team, and we determined, okay, let's cut a hole. Let's find out what's going on. We cut this hole in the roof, and sure enough, our roof is at that area was about 1.5 feet thick. So we cut down to the bottom, and sure enough, it looks like there's a lake underneath this brand new $1 million roof. And I look at our team and I say, how did this happen, guys? And so the person who was in charge of securing the roof and making sure that it was protected and for that weather explained what the decisions were that they made to do that, to how to protect it. And as it's getting explained to me, I'm thinking that would have never worked. Why would you make that choice? But he was doing the best with what he thought would work. And at first, my body language, changed dramatically. Everyone could see that Josh was not happy. And I said, I need a minute. And so I walked away from the situation. And in my head, I've been through some really other large, challenging projects as well. In my head, I know how this plays out. We're going to end up tearing off this entire roof and having to replace it with only about 6 months left to go in this project. And there's going to be insurance involved and lawyers, and the client's going to be very angry. And, all of these things, in that moment, I'm calculating the pain we're going to have to go through to correct the mistakes that were made. And so my general superintendent comes over, and we're chatting with each other, and we have a great relationship. He embodies a similar leadership mindset that I do, where we kind of position ourselves as more of a guide to our team members rather than the hero with the cape on. And so we were a great team. And, in that moment, we had to, make a decision. And, there's basically two paths that we could take on this decision. One is we fire that guy that made that decision to basically haphazardly try to protect a roof when, there was a way better way to do it that would have worked. We could have fired that person, sent him walking, and no one would have been surprised.
Right. They probably were expecting it, right?
That person was expecting it. We talked to that person later about it, and he flat out told us I was expecting you to send me walking that day. And again, that would have been normal. No one would have been surprised. Everyone, on the team would have been like, yeah, that's probably just what you do. And so that's path one. And I've been down that story. Like, I know how that movie already ends.
Right. When you say you've been down that, you've done that before, or I
have had to let other people go, and it's not fun. It's, those are some of the worst memories in my career, having to do that. And so, and I know, again, how that movie ends. I know what that does to team morale. Whether it's justified or not to, lay someone off, it still affects team morale in a huge way. And so that's path one. Path two is that we take ownership of it as the two co-leaders on the project. We own the issue entirely, and we give that person an opportunity to make a positive impact on the rest of the project going forward. And so we had that discussion right there on that roof. And
just you and him, just you and the
okay. Myself and my counterpart, just standing in a quiet corner having this discussion, and we both come to the same conclusion that we're going to own this. This is our issue. There were things that we could have done to ensure that person knew exactly what we meant when we said protect that corner of the roof. When I say, when in doubt, draw it out, right? If you paint a clear picture for the people that you lead of what done looks like, and you have clear expectations, the results are going to, be much better. If you leave it up to them to figure out what done looks like, well, who's the one that's really, at fault here? Mm-hmm. Right. And so we made that choice. We said, we're going to take this one. This is ours. We're going to own it fully. And so, we come back to the group and we come up with a game plan physically on what needs to happen next to remedy the issue. That won't impact the deadline that we had to hit, just 6 months away. We lay that out for the team. We pull that one team member aside that, made the choice on site, and we had a discussion with them about it. We said, look, that wasn't what we were looking for. Obviously, we can't fix this now, but what we expect from you going forward is we want you to be a driving force in ensuring that this doesn't affect the deadline, and that you're doing everything in your power to help us get across the finish line. And we want you to ask us for help going forward. If you don't understand what we are asking you to do, if it wasn't clear before, we hope it's clear now. You're open to asking for clarification and clearer expectations when we're asking you to do something. And that's when he looked at us. He said, "You're not going to fire me?"
Right.
And we said, no, we need you. We cannot finish this project without you. There's no cavalry coming. The crew that we have is the crew that we have, and we need you to help us finish this project. Right. And you could see his body language change in that moment.
Right.
You could see, like, he had the weight of the world on his shoulders one moment, and then the next moment he's relaxed and like, wow, okay. right?
Right.
And
Right.
this man had a life outside of work, right? He had
Yeah.
kids, he had plenty of going
Mhm.
on. And if we send him walking, then, where's he going to get a job next with that kind of
Right.
reference, right?
So Josh, I'm going to unpack. I have like tons of questions I want to unpack, but
Sure.
what was the outcome? Like, how did you remedy? What money did you
Yeah.
lose? Like,
Yeah.
did you actually meet the timeline? What was the conversation like with a client? Because that could not have been a fun conversation.
Yeah, unfortunately or fortunately, at that point in my career, I'd had so many tough conversations with clients. Like my ability to do that is very good because I've been there before.
Yeah.
So what happened next? And I'll try the shortest version of this possible. We pulled the whole job site together, first of all, and we're talking about a few hundred people.
Mhm.
Explained, the situation and the challenges that it presents for us to finish the project. It's really hard to finish the project without a roof.
Yeah, it's kind of needed, especially in Portland.
Especially in Portland, yeah. And so, we had a game plan. We laid that out to the crew, and my general superintendent gave a pretty inspired speech to everybody about how we need every single person on this job site working together to make sure that we hit this finish line. And everyone knew what had happened. So, every single craft person on that job was frankly surprised that we were taking the approach we were, and that we hadn't fired, the person on our team that made the choice, right? And so that was a bound together moment for the entire site. The entire site saw that the people in charge had empathy, for everyone on the crew, and really, had a team mindset that we needed. We really did literally need every person and every, finger and toe that they had in order to finish that job. So we brought the team together first, and then, we went to the client, who was a great client, really good people. And, we went to them and we told them what happened in great detail.
So you admitted, like, we didn't secure the roof
Yep.
before the flash floods. Okay, you just said,
Yep.
"Hey, here's what happened."
We fully owned it, and they were also surprised because, without getting into all the weeds, there was a very good reason that area of the roof wasn't done, and it had to do with design issues that weren't ours as a contractor to solve. We were waiting for solutions to finish that, so we could have easily said, "Hey, that's not our fault. Like, look,
Right.
if your designer had figured this out, we would have had that area done too." And they knew that, but we didn't take that path. We owned it fully, and when they saw that, they were like, "Wow, okay, well, this is really hard, but what's next? How are we gonna resolve this?" And we had a plan. They were looking to us for a plan.
Sure.
We had the plan. And when they saw that, they they felt relieved as well. They're like, okay, they're not coming for us. They're not going to blame our designers. They just want the project to win too. And, it's an insurance claim at the end of the day. When on these big projects, you have big insurance policies. And that's why they're there, unfortunately, is for issues like this. And so the insurance companies, had to, pay for it. And we actually were able to repair the roof in such a way that we were able to finish the project on time. And then after the project was done and turned over, then we kind of methodically went through and replaced the roof once the terminal was operational after the fact.
So it sounds like that was the best case scenario. You didn't fire anyone. The project was done on time. It didn't cost you anything extra. And it's almost like you rallied the troops, right? Best case scenario. So let's go back. You're on the roof and you were discussing, you just found out what happened. And then you're going to have this sidebar conversation. How do you manage your emotions in times like that? Because it sounds like you went through everything very quickly and was able to get mentally focused to make a sound decision. What is your process for managing emotions, or is it just experience? Like, how did you do it there on that roof?
Yeah, I think fortunately for everyone on that project, I was 16 or 17 years into my career at that point, and so I had Josh, 12 or 15 years ago wouldn't have managed my emotions very well at all. And so the fact that I had seen a lot and been through a lot and, and had that experience is what allowed me to have a calm head in that moment. I wouldn't have made those same kind of decisions, early in my career or early in my leadership roles. And I've seen, like I said, I've seen those decisions play out, both by ones I've made in my past and other folks that were, in leadership roles, above me. I've seen it played the other way. And I just happen to know how that story ends. And so that's what it was, and probably some good breathing actually in that moment, taking some deep breaths, allowed us to be calm. And my counterpart, the general superintendent, he's been in it, longer than me. He had, almost 25 years of experience. So he also was someone, who'd seen a lot and had a calm head. And it wasn't, our approach on that project, early on, myself and my counterpart, we had many discussions about, the fact that we had a very young team of people with less experience, great drive, and sharp people, but just hadn't seen nearly as much as we had. And so we put ourselves intentionally in a kind of a guide role early on, where we wanted to be more like, yes, we need to build a project, but we also want to build these people up at the same time and help them grow as individuals. So we already had embodied that kind of mindset going, into this project. And we've been doing that for, about a year and a half already. And so this is just another one of those moments where it's like, well, are we going to be guides or are we going to try to be, heroes here? And, we wanted to, be consistent with our approach and, being the guide to, help these folks learn from our mistakes was an easy decision to make in the moment because of the mindset we already had.
Yeah, because I can imagine a lot of leaders just stepping in. I used to work in customer-facing role to where if the customer is mad, they want to get a manager, right? And then the manager swoops in and does that. So you obviously didn't do that. One of the lessons I picked up on from what you said, and I want to ask you if there were more, but you said paint a clear picture of what done looks like. And I think that is a lot of us as leaders get tripped up and we expect them to know. Well, you just said you have 17 years of experience. You know what done looks like. Yeah. That younger person may not have, or less experienced person. So talk about that a little bit. What would you have done looking back? What would you do to paint that clearer picture of done?
Yeah, I would have left my meeting that I was in and met them on site to lay out exactly how we're going to secure this area of the roof. And the irony is the material was there to do it correctly, literally sitting on the roof about 100 feet away from where this location was. It's like, my gosh, it's right there. And so, yeah, physically, going out there and showing, and laying out, the expectation of what it looks like is what I would have done. I wish I would have. And, it's the same thing that, my counterpart, the general superintendent, was kicking himself for as well. He's like, man, I could have gone out, but he was stuck in meetings also. And so instead of, pressing pause on, the endless cycle of meetings that we get caught in as leaders, to actually lay out for folks, visually what done looks like, we didn't. And so that's, in that particular sense, in that particular instance, I really wish I would have just walked out on site, taken 10 minutes, to explain, how it needs to be done, and then go back to the meetings, and I think as leaders, we get caught with the challenge of time, right? It feels like we never have enough time to explain things to folks that are working for us. But in the long run, if we do take those little moments to really explain it in clear detail, what done looks like, we're going to save ourselves time on the back end because we don't have to deal with messes or issues or challenges that are created by someone not doing it the way that it should have been done. right?
Mhm. Yeah. And I think there's also this balance between I'm going to show them what done looks like in micromanagement, right?
Yep.
So if somebody's like, I got this, and you're like, no, do you really? Let me come show you anyway. So I think it's tough as a leader to make the call because in my mind, I'm thinking, I love the concept of what is done look like painting that picture. And in the construction industry, you almost have to show, right? I mean, you can maybe draw them a picture, but how do you know this is, I don't know. It's just a thought that just popped up. How do you know when it's, I need to show them versus, oh, they got it and it's micromanagement? Do you know how to tell the difference between the two?
This goes into a checklist that we give leaders in our leadership series called the Get It Done checklist. And the done in that phrase is an acronym. And so we step these folks through this acronym, and I'll explain that in a second. But the way that you get away from micromanaging is to create a psychologically safe workplace where you are giving trust and agency to the people that are getting the things done for you. And you do that through delegation, but you have to find that balance between just giving them a task or being right up in them every step of the way, right? And so to delegate effectively, you have to lay it out for them what done looks like. You have to set, you have to give them ownership of the task. You have to say, okay, this is your baby. You're going to lead it. I'm going to be here as a resource for you, and I want you to know that there are no such things as dumb questions. I want you to ask them because I've asked them too, as I've learned. So just if you're unclear about a task and how you're going to get it done, just come and ask. But you have the ownership, and I'm here as a resource. Again, kind of sitting in the guide seat rather than the hero seat. You want them positioned as the hero, and you position yourself as the guide. And another big one as a manager, the N in the Get It Done checklist is you have to meet the needs of the person you're delegating to by giving them the tools. Sometimes it's physical tools, sometimes it's theoretical tools, but they need the tools and resources in order to get the task done for you. So if you're not, you ask someone to build an Excel spreadsheet for you, but they don't have Microsoft Excel on their computer because you don't want to pay for it, how are they going to get it done?
Right.
I know that's a very simple example, but that's what we're talking about. Yeah. We're talking about meeting their needs.
But oftentimes people can't get the basics of their job done because they don't have little things like that. So I think it's a fair example.
Totally. Yeah. And then again, the E in the Get It Done checklist is the expectations where, when in doubt, draw it out. Paint a picture clearly of what done looks like. And I think if you follow that, I know it's a simple checklist, but I got a hard-hatted head. I need simple, otherwise I just can't get it. So
we all need simple.
Yeah,
we all need simple. Yeah.
So it's very simple, but it's effective. And I practice it. In my current business, and in the later half of my previous career, that's how I approached it. Early on in my leadership role, I would just say, go do this thing. Right. And then they wouldn't do it the way I wanted it. And then guess what? I just took it back on my desk and I did it. Right.
Yes. I have heard leaders say it's just easier for me to do it.
Totally.
Like, worse.
Yeah.
Yes. The worst.
And I get it. But that would eat me alive because then I'm doing 2, 3, 4, 5 people's jobs. Right. Instead of just mine, which is supposed to lead them. Right. And those people weren't growing along the way. Right? If I just take their tasks back for them when they don't do it because they couldn't read my mind, right? Mm-hmm. And I do it for them, it's not helping out anybody, certainly not myself.
Right. Well, in that experience, I love that paint a clear picture of done, because I think as leaders, we don't do that well. A lot of us don't do that well. Yeah. And then let them go. I like the done acronym. But what else? There's anything else that you picked up or that you learned and you took from that situation and now, lead differently as a result?
I think, that particular moment was a transformational moment for me in my leadership approach. I was building up to that moment. I knew that I needed to be better and, more of a guide in my leadership role. And that was really the pivot point for me, to this newer approach. Not that it's a new approach. People figure this out, over and over again, right? And just keep trying to reteach it. But that was, for me, that was the moment where it's like, okay, seeing the impact it had on that individual, seeing the impact it had on the project, I was like, this way works. This is effective, and it comes with less heartache at the end of the day. So my lesson out of that was, do it this way, Josh, and keep building on it. That was kind of the next step in my leadership mindset. And so I've really, since then, I've just built on that, the whole purpose-driven leadership concept that I teach, and expanded it.
So, leadership can be a lonely road. And I know that you talked about, you have your general superintendent, but who do you lean on? Who or what? Like, what are your practices? Who are your people that you lean on for support when, the stuff hits the fan?
Yeah. Well,
as it always does, inevitably.
Yeah. In my current life, a lot of it is, with my wife. She's also been a leader in her roles as well. So we bat a lot of stuff around when there's tough moments. But I have a great group of team members as well, and I try to be very open with everybody. I'm not spilling my guts on them all the time, because that's not effective leadership either. But I try to be vulnerable and honest with them when I'm struggling with stuff, so that they know that I'm not immune to any of those challenges either. But the other resource that I have is, I've built something called a life destination map. And it's basically a 10-year, 5-year, and 1-year plan for me that integrates professional life with personal goals and family life, and also, hobbies, or those kind of things that are supposed to bring you joy. And it's a map. It's not a fixed path, but it's something that I refer back to. I update every year, but I also refer back to it during the year, especially when I'm in what I call pits of despair, or those challenging moments where, like, golly, I don't even want to get out of bed today. Why am I doing this? Why? I could go work for anybody and just have them send me a check every 2 weeks, right? So, and it's easy to get lost in the weeds in the day-to-day grind if you don't have a bigger vision for why you're doing whatever it is that you're doing. So this life destination map is a really effective tool for helping me to jump out of kind of the purposeless rut back into a purpose-driven life, where it's like, okay, you put your feet on the ground out of bed every day because of where you want to be a year from now, and where you want to be 5 years from now, and where you want to be in 10 years. And when you start looking at it like that, that's not a lot of time. No. So it goes by so fast. And so, if you're like, oh, wow, okay, like, I'm going to be at that 10-year mark before we know it. So I better hop right back into, focusing on, the things that I need to get done to reach that bigger purpose in my life.
Is it a personal thing that you've created? Is it available anywhere, or is it just kind of your...
Yeah, so in the Foundational 5 Guiding Principles series, that's one of the tools that I call the leadership navigation system that we give folks. I openly share mine with people so they can see, like, I think, when you first show it to someone, they're like, God, I'm never going to be able to fill all this out. And it's like, it's not about the number of words. It's about the why. And, right. So I show them, like, here's mine. This is not simple. This isn't the matrix. It's very, very straightforward. And so we give this tool to everybody that goes through our series as part of a bigger leadership navigation system.
Gotcha. Well, before we close out, Josh, what would you recommend to leaders? Like, if you had one piece of advice to instill upon them, really looking back at young Josh, what would you give your advice to your younger self?
it's hard to sum it up in one thing, but one thing I wish I would have given myself back in the day was more grace and pace. I wanted to climb, the corporate ladder, right? I wanted to succeed, and I never slowed down. I worked my butt off, just like so many young leaders, just to climb. And I never really paused to think about whether I'm doing this effectively, whether it's, having a positive impact on the people I'm leading, whether I'm having a positive impact on myself and my personal life. I just grinded. I never gave myself any pace. And every time that I made a mistake in my either my leadership techniques or in my own work, I always kicked myself. We are all our own worst critic. And whether we're willing to admit that to ourselves or not, we are. Mm-hmm. And I was my own worst critic, and I think I cost myself years of progress because I was kicking myself way too hard. And I think as leaders, if we're willing to take the cape off early on and not try to be the hero in every moment and kick ourselves when we fail as a hero, I think we're going to be more effective leaders if we're willing to act more as a guide and share our experience rather than just doing all the things for everybody all at once.
Yeah. All right. I have one question. We're going to end, but I'm curious about this. Yeah. How did you get to being the leader who kicks himself for all the mistakes you make? So we're human. We make mistakes. Leaders make mistakes. How did you get that shift to now, 17 years later, you're saying these are gifts of failure? Right? Yeah. Was it just a serious, how did you eventually start shifting your mindset around failure to be it, from this is really terrible to no, this is actually a gift?
Honestly, it was, try to keep it short, but I got really sick and it put me down in bed for about 9 weeks. And wow. And although ironically, I never stopped working during it. I worked from my bed like an idiot.
Sounds about right.
Right. So I couldn't take the cape off even when I was sick. Right. Mm-hmm. But in those 9 weeks, it gave me a ton of time for reflection. And it was actually early on in this project that I told the story about. It was early on in that project when I got really sick because I was working like 12 hours a day and never resting. But when I was in bed, literally, it exhausted me to even try to watch, a show or look at my screen. So, but I also couldn't sleep. And so I had a lot of time to myself to think. And I reflected on my entire career and all those hard moments. And that's really, I don't want everyone to have to get really sick in order to reflect on these things. But that gave me the time to sit with all this stuff that had been building up for years and think about, what did I learn out of this? Right. And that's where I started thinking about all these really challenging times in my life and how they were really gifts to shape me into the person that I was becoming. That's what it was. Again, I hope not everyone gets really sick, but the self-reflection, I know it sounds silly and it can be kind of a thing that gets looked past, but finding time in your day to reflect on the challenging moments and what you learned out of them can make such a huge difference and impact on your life going forward. If you're able to reframe your pain, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, that was really hard. I'm still alive. The earth is still here. I'm still moving forward. What can I do with the lessons that I learned there moving forward? Doesn't mean we're not going to make mistakes again. I make mistakes every darn day still. Right. But what can we do to learn from those past ones to not do them again? And more importantly, help others not make those same mistakes. Mm-hmm. That's a big piece of, leadership is, helping others avoid the pit. You can see the pit because you've already been down it. Steer them around that thing, right?
Well, that's what I'm hoping we can do on this podcast. Yeah. So, Josh, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's been enlightening and helpful. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jen. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us on Growing Through It. I'm Jen Arnold, and it's been a pleasure sharing this time with you. If today's story sparked something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to our podcast, leave a review, and share it with your fellow leaders. And remember, each episode comes with a nugget of wisdom that we expand on in our newsletter. So if you're eager to put these insights into action, head over to our website at growthsignals.co and sign up for exclusive content that'll give you an edge in your leadership journey. Keep growing, and I'll connect with you again soon in our next episode. Until then, take the lessons learned and lead authentically.